Hello everyone, I am Dr. Shalini Maksane, Assistant Professor in Department of Biochemistry, St. GS Medical College and KM Hospital, Mumbai. Today we are going to discuss a very basic but important topic of practical biochemistry, that is normal constituents of urine. As per CBME, the competencies which will be covered under this practical sessions are B11.3 and 11.4. Specific learning objectives for this session are that at the end of the session, students should be able to analyze the chemical constituents in normal urine, classify chemical constituents of normal urine in two groups, organic and inorganic constituents, accurately. Students should be able to describe the clinical significance of chemical constituents of normal urine, and finally, students should be able to demonstrate the steps for measuring specific gravity using urinometer, referring to the given SOP independently under expert observation. So first of all, what is urine? Urine is an aqueous solution produced by kidney through the process of ultrafiltration. After making of urine into the kidney, the urine is passed through the pelvis and ureter, and then it is stored in bladder. From bladder, it is finally excreted through urethra. Urine contains mainly water. Around 95% of urine is water, except that metabolic waste products, toxic substances, and surplus amount of useful substances. Now, why it is important to know normal urine composition? As you must be knowing that urine is an important diagnostic sample. It is very easy to obtain. Urine analysis permits detailed and in-depth assessment of renal status. It helps us to assess overall metabolic function of body. Like you must have heard about phenylketonuria. It is an inborn error of protein metabolism. So normally what happens in phenylketonuria, the one enzyme which converts phenylalanine into tyrosine, the enzyme is phenylalanine hydroxylase, which is absent. So because of this, the phenylalanine accumulate in the body, in blood, and then it is excreted into urine. Normally it is absent in urine. So by detecting the presence of phenylketonuria, we can detect metabolic defects also. So this is how urine analysis can help us to identify metabolic dysfunctions. It also helps to understand other organ functions. Like you must have heard about liver function test. You must have heard about jaundice. So usually what happens in jaundice, there are different types of jaundice. So in urine, bilirubin is present in very small amount in normal condition, but in various types of jaundice, urobilinogen can be absent in some in obstetric type of jaundice, and hemolytic and hepatic jaundice, urobilinogen is present in urine. So based upon the detection of urobilinogen in urine, we can find out the defects of liver function or various types of jaundice. Urine analysis also helps us to diagnose or monitor some disease like diabetes. In diabetes, glucose is excreted in urine. Normally glucose is absent in urine. So by urine analysis we can know that whether glucose is present or absent in urine, and it can help us to diagnose diabetes or to monitor the stages of diabetes. So in order to detect these abnormalities, an understanding of the normal physiochemical properties of urine is necessary. Now, what is the normal constituents of urine? As I told you earlier, around 90 to 95% of urine is water, and remaining 5 to 10% is made up of solid parts. These solid parts may be either organic constituents or inorganic constituents. So major inorganic constituents which are present in urine are either cations or anion. Major cations present in urine are sodium, potassium, calcium, ammonium, magnesium. Ammonium is an inorganic nitrogenous component. And major anions present in urine are chloride, sulfate, phosphate, bicarbonate. So these cations and anions are present in urine in salt form. Okay, like sodium sulfate, ammonium chloride, they make these types of salts in the urine. So another category is organic constituents of urine, which are also further divided into nitrogenous organic compounds and organic sulfur containing compounds. Urea, creatinine, uric acid, hippuric acid, they are nitrogenous organic compounds, and ethyl sulfate, it is an organic sulfur containing compound. Other than these major compounds, trace amounts of various hormones, enzymes, vitamins, fatty acids, urobilinogen, they are also present in urine. So first we will discuss the physical characteristics of urine. First characteristic is volume. Normal person excrete around 600 to 2000 ml of urine per day. So average urine excretion is around 1.5 liter per day in normal person. If the volume of urine increases, the condition is called polyuria, which happens in conditions like diabetes mellitus, diabetes insipidus. And if the volume of urine excreted per day decreases, the condition is called oliguria. It occurs in various pathological and physiological conditions like in urine tract obstruction, acute renal failure. You will get to know about these conditions in next practical, which is abnormal constituents of urine. So another characteristic, physical characteristic of urine is color. So normal urine is of yellow or amber yellow color. The color of urine is because of a pigment called urochrome and urobilin. The color of urine give us idea about the concentration of urine. More intense the color, more concentrate is urine. So color of urine can be affected by our diet or our medications, and various pathological conditions. Like if we take beetroot in our diet, our urine may appear of light pink color. And sometimes you must have observed that when we take vitamin B complex, the urine color is very yellow. So this is how diet and medication can alter the color of urine. But these are like physiological condition. The color of urine may also change in various pathological conditions. Another characteristic is appearance. Freshly voided urine is clear in appearance. The appearance of urine can be affected by pH and dissolved solutes in urine. And urine become turbid on standing due to precipitation of phosphates. So as I have told you earlier that inorganic phosphates are present in urine. So upon standing, urea which is present in urine is converted into ammonium ion, and it makes the medium alkaline, and in alkaline condition inorganic phosphates get precipitate. So this is why on standing urine becomes turbid. And if urine is acidic, it also become turbid because of not turbid, yellow red crystal appears in urine because of presence of urate. As uric acid is present in urate ion form if the urine is alkaline. The urine pH if it is more than 5.75, uric acid will be present as urate, and it is more soluble in that medium. And if the urine is acidic in urine, if the urine is acidic, uric acid is present in non-ionic form, which is uric acid only. And in that condition, uric acid is less soluble in urine, and the crystallization of urate occurs, which shows yellow red crystals in urine. So another characteristic is odor. The odor of urine is usually pungent, which is because of presence of aromatic volatile acids, and it turns ammoniacal on standing. The reason is that urea which is present in urine is converted into ammonia upon standing, and which causes the ammoniacal odor. Specific gravity. It is the another physical characteristic of urine. The specific gravity gives us idea about the density or concentration of urine. Normal specific gravity of urine is 1.003 to 1.030, and it is a dimensionless unit. It has no unit. So what is specific gravity? Specific gravity is a comparison of density of urine with density of pure water or distilled water. So formula for calculation of specific gravity is weight of 1 ml of urine upon weight of 1 ml of water at specified temperature. So we should measure specific gravity at specific temperature. We will learn in detail about how to measure specific gravity in coming slide. So it can also be affected by in various pathological conditions. If the solute dissolved in urine increases, the specific gravity will increase, and if diluted urine is excreted, the specific gravity will decrease. Next physical characteristic is total solids. The normal total solids present in urine is around 30 to 70 grams per liter. To calculate total solids, we need to take last two digits of specific gravity and then to multiply it with Long's coefficient, that is 2.66, to get the value of total solids present in urine. Another characteristic is pH. pH of pH of freshly voided normal urine is slightly acidic, which is between 4.6 to 7. The acidity of pH is due to presence of phosphate ion and various metabolic acids like lactate, pyruvate, citrate. They causes the pH of urine acidic. And the pH of urine turns alkaline upon standing, as discussed earlier. And it is also affected by our diet. Like if we take non-veg diet, high protein diet, or if we ingest acidic fruits, the urine is acidic. And if there is a high intake of vegetables, citrus fruits, this causes the urine alkaline, because in citrus fruit there are minerals which are present in fruits and which makes the urine alkaline, and citric acid is metabolized into carbonate, which is then excreted in urine. Postprandial urine is also alkaline because most of the acid of our body is utilized for digestion in that condition. Now we will discuss how to measure specific gravity of urine. Specific gravity of urine is measured using urinometer. This is the instrument called urinometer. It has three parts. First is stem. It has calibrations with numbers marked to measure the specific gravity. This is the marking on the stems. Second part is float. It has air in this balloon like structure, and it causes floating of the urinometer. Third part is weight, which is the lower end of the urinometer, and there is mercury which is filled in this part. Now what is the principle of urinometer? Urinometer works on the principle of buoyancy. It is designed and calibrated in such a way that it sinks to the level of 1 in the distilled water at particular temperature. So this is urinometer, and you can see this is the marking of 1. So when we will dip this urinometer in distilled water, the level will be 1 at particular temperature. Because of increased density of urine, when we will dip this urinometer in urine, the urine has higher density compared to water. The urinometer will float higher in urine than in water. Now what is the standard operating procedure to measure specific gravity of urine? These are the steps to measure specific gravity of urine. First, we need to allow urine to reach room temperature and mix it well. Then fill the glass cylinder with urine up to 2/3 mark. Then remove all foam which is present on the surface of urine by using filter paper, as this may cause difficulty to take the readings of the meniscus. Then gently insert the urinometer into the container. Make sure that the urinometer do not touch the bottom or sides of the container, and allow it to float freely. Then read the calibrated graduations at the lowest level of urinary meniscus. So whatever reading given by the urinometer is called observed specific gravity. Now, as I have mentioned earlier, urinometer is calibrated at 15 degrees centigrade, or sometimes the calibration temperature may be 20 degrees centigrade. Now we need the temperature correction to get the corrected specific gravity. For every 3 degree rise in room temperature, we have to add 0.001 to the observed specific gravity. This is the formula to calculate corrected specific gravity, where this is observed specific gravity plus 0.001 into temperature difference upon 3. Say if the room temperature is 30 degrees centigrade, then the temperature difference will be 30 minus 15 is equal to 15. In that situation, we have to replace the temperature difference with 15, and the value will be calculated specific gravity. And if the room temperature is lower than calibration temperature, then for every 3 degree fall in room temperature, we have to subtract 0.001 from the observed specific gravity. In that situation, that plus will be replaced by minus sign, otherwise the formula will remain same. This is urinometer. It is also kept in spot. Last year it was observed that students were wrongly identifying urinometer as Fallin Wu tube. This is the Fallin Wu tube. This is a glassware and this is an instrument. So observe the difference between these two carefully. Now we will discuss clinical significance of inorganic constituents of urine. So major inorganic constituents are listed in this table. First one is ammonia. Ammonium ion are produced in renal tubular cells. They are not filtered through the renal glomerulus, but are internally produced in renal tubular cells from from glutamine. So it is mainly a catabolic product of amino acid catabolism. Ammonium ions have important role in acid-base balance. The ammonium ions produced in renal tubular cells are either secreted into renal tubular cell or in blood to maintain acid-base homeostasis. So the daily excretion of ammonium ion in normal person is around 0.3 to 1.2 grams per day. Second important inorganic ion is chloride. Chloride is mainly extracellular anion. It plays important role in maintaining plasma osmolality and blood volume. The movement of chloride is always secondary to the movement of other ion like sodium and bicarbonate ion. The daily excretion of chloride ion in normal person is around 9 to 16 grams per day. Another important ion is calcium ion. The calcium ion is mainly present in bone. Around 99% of calcium is present in bone. The other role of calcium is it have important role in nerve functioning, muscle contraction, blood coagulation, and hormone secretion. So the calcium is filtered through the glomerulus, and around 98% of calcium filtered is reabsorbed in renal tubules, in proximal convoluted tube, distal convoluted tubule, and ascending limb. The level of calcium is controlled by parathyroid hormone, vitamin D, and calcitonin. Parathyroid hormone increases the reabsorption of calcium in renal tubule. Another ion is phosphate ion. Phosphate ion is also a major component of bone it have other important roles also. It is a major it is a part of high energy components like ATP, GTP, creatine phosphate. It is also component of phosphoprotein, phospholipids. It plays important role in cellular metabolism also. Phosphate is also uh, uh, filtered through glomerulus and reabsorbed in renal tubules, mainly in proximal convoluted tubule. The level of phosphate is controlled by parathyroid hormone, vitamin D, and thyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone decreases reabsorption of phosphate in renal tubules, while vitamin D increases reabsorption of phosphate. Thyroid hormone also increases absorption of phosphate in renal tubule. The daily excretion of phosphate in urine is around 1 gram. Another ion is sulfate ion. The daily excretion of sulfate ion in urine is 0.7 to 3.5 gram in normal person. Sulfates ion are present in sulfur-containing amino acids like cysteine, cysteine, methionine. Sulfates ion have important role in cell matrix synthesis also. It is excreted as either inorganic sulfate or as ethereal sulfate in urine. Clinical significance of organic constituents of urine. First one is creatinine. In muscle, there is one compound called creatine phosphate is present. It is a high energy component which provide energy. It is the first source of energy during muscle contraction. Around 20% of creatine phosphate is spontaneously converted into creatinine daily, and this creatinine is a waste product which is excreted by kidney, and creatinine is not reabsorbed in the kidney. The daily excretion of creatinine is around 1.1 or 2 gram 1 to 2 grams per day, and the level of creatinine increases in urine in some pathological conditions like muscular disorders, and creatinine excretion decreases during advanced renal failure. Next is ethereal sulfate. Daily excretion of ethereal sulfate in normal person is around 100 milligram. It is an end product of sulfur metabolism. It is ester of sulfuric acid with hydroxy aromatic acids. Another one is hippuric acid. The daily excretion of hippuric acid in a normal person is around 0.1 to 1 gram. It is a detoxification product of benzoic acid with glycine. Which is present in fruits, vegetables, and food preservatives. Next one is urea. Daily excretion of urea in normal person is around 20 to 30 grams per day. Urea is a product of protein catabolism which is produced by uh, by liver with the help of urea cycle, and the urea is which is produced by liver is excreted by kidney, and it unlike creatinine, urea is reabsorbed and secreted in kidneys. The increased urea excretion is seen after high protein diet and during pregnancy. Decreased excretion is seen in low protein intake, liver diseases, kidney failure, shock, and post-renal obstruction, and in some other pathological conditions. Next one is uric acid. Uric acid acid's daily excretion in normal person is around zero point 0.3 to 1 gram. Acid is a catabolic product of purines like adenine and guanine. The excretion of uric acid increases in non-vegetarian diet, gout, multiple myeloma, leukemia, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. There is increased excretion of uric acid whenever there is high turnover of nucleic acids, purine like adenine and guanine. Decreased excretion is seen in chronic kidney diseases, organic acids, and diuretics. Now we will discuss procedures for estimation of inorganic and organic constituents of urine. So first is sulfate. Take 3 ml of urine, then add 1 ml of concentrated HCl and then 1 ml of barium chloride. Curdy white precipitate will appear in tube. So what happens? Sulfates ion present in urine sample reacts with barium chloride to form barium sulfate, which gives curdy white precipitate. Presence of HCl keeps the phosphate ion in solution. As we know that phosphate ion get precipitates in alkaline medium, so by adding acid we are keeping phosphate ion in soluble form. Next is chloride. For chloride estimation, take 3 ml of urine, then add 1 ml of concentrated nitric acid and then 1 ml of silver nitrate. Again, curdy white precipitate will appear in test tube. So what happens? Chloride ions present in urine reacts with silver nitrate to give white precipitate of silver chloride. Again, presence of acid keeps phosphates ion in solution. Next is estimation of calcium and phosphate ions. So for first what we do, we take 10 ml of urine and then 3 ml of strong ammonia dropwise. Then boil and filter. After boiling, there will be gelatinous precipitate, white precipitate will be formed. This precipitate is of calcium phosphate. Then filter the solution and discard the filtrate. Then on filter paper, pour 5 ml of 10% hot acetic acid and collect the filtrate. Then divide the filtrate into two parts. In first part, add 2 ml of ammonium oxalate or potassium oxalate. After adding ammonium oxalate or potassium oxalate, again curdy white precipitate will, white turbidity will appear in test tube. This turbidity is because of formation of calcium oxalate. Calcium ion present in urine in filtrate reacts with ammonium oxalate to give white turbidity of calcium oxalate. Then in second part, we will add 1 ml of concentrated nitric acid and then 5 ml of ammonium molybdate and then boil. After boiling, canary yellow precipitate will appear in test tube. It will look like this. What happens in filtrate? Phosphate ion present in filtrate reacts with ammonium molybdate to form ammonium phosphomolybdate, which gives this canary yellow color to the sample. So it confirms the presence of phosphate in given sample. Now test for ammonia. For this, take 3 ml of urine, then add 1 ml of 5% NaOH and heat. When fumes start appearing, hold the filter paper, which is pre-moistened with 3 to 4 drops of phenolphthalein. Take this pre-moistened filter paper near to the mouth of test tubes. Then pink spots will appear on the filter paper, which will disappear quickly. So what happens in urine sample? Ammonia is present as a in salt form. Ammonium ions are present in salt form. By heating in alkaline medium, these ammonium salts are decomposed and ammonia vapors are released. As we know that ammonia is alkaline in nature, it turns phenolphthalein indicator into pink. Tests for organic constituents of urine. First, we will discuss tests for urea. There are two tests for estimation of urea in urine sample. First is specific urease test and second is hypobromide test. In specific urease test, take 3 ml of urine, then add a drop of phenolphthalein indicator, then a pinch of urease powder. Urease is an enzyme which hydrolyzes urea into ammonium carbonate. Shake all the contents of the tube well and allow it to stand for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, intense pink color will develop in test tube, which confirms the presence of urea in urine sample. What happens? Urea present in urine sample is hydrolyzed by urease enzyme to form ammonium carbonate, and ammonium carbonate is alkaline in nature, which converts phenolphthalein indicator into this pink color. Next is hypobromide test for urea. For this test, take 3 ml of urine in a test tube, then add few drops of sodium hypobromite solution. Marked effervescence will be observed in test tube, which confirms the presence of urea. What happens? Urea present in urine sample is decomposed by hypobromite to release nitrogen gas. This nitrogen gas release is release of nitrogen gas appears in the form of effervescence. Next is test for creatinine. Jaffe's test is done for creatinine estimation. For this test, take 3 ml of saturated picric acid solution and then add 3 ml of 5% NaOH solution. Mix both the solution and divide the solution into 2 equal parts. In first part, add 2 ml of urine, and in second part, add 2 ml of distilled water. The second part serve as a control tube, and first part is test tube. So in after adding urine sample, in first part orange red color appear, and in control tube there will be a yellow color. So what happens in the creatinine present in urine reacts with picric acid in alkaline medium. This NaOH provide alkaline medium and form orange colored complex of creatinine picrate. So this is a red orange color complex of creatinine picrate, which confirms the presence of creatinine in urine sample. Now tests for uric acid. Before performing tests for uric acid, we have to prepare alkaline urine sample. For this, you have to take 1 ml of 2% sodium carbonate, and then you have to add 3 ml of urine into it. So this is how we have to prepare alkaline urine sample. Now there are two tests for uric acid estimation. First is Schiff's test and second is Benedict's uric acid test. For Schiff test, add 2 to 3 drops of silver nitrate on filter paper, and on this filter paper add 5 to 6 drops of alkaline urine sample which we have prepared, and warm gently if required. What will happen? There will be grayish black spot on filter paper. This confirms the presence of uric acid in sample. What happens? Uric acid is a strong reducing agent in alkaline medium. So by preparing alkaline solution, we are providing alkaline medium for the reaction, and in alkaline medium uric acid reduces silver nitrate to metallic silver, which gives this grayish black spot. For Benedict's uric acid test, take 3 ml of alkaline urine, and in alkaline urine add few drops of Benedict's uric acid reagent and mix the content. Intense blue color will appear in test tube, which confirms the presence of uric acid. This is how color will develop in Benedict's uric acid test. As I have already mentioned that uric acid is a strong reducing agent in alkaline medium, and it reduces phosphotungstic acid present in Benedict's reagent to tungsten blue. Test for hippuric acid. For this, take 3 ml of urine and add 1 ml of 5% NaOH, then add diluted ferric chloride solution drop by drop. Cream colored precipitate will appear in test tube. So what happens? This cream colored complex is made up of ferric hippurate. Now next is test for ethyl sulfate. For this, add 5 ml of urine. Take 5 ml of urine in a test tube, then add 5 ml of Baryta mixture. What is Baryta mixture? It is a mixture of barium hydroxide and barium nitrate. Saturated solution of barium hydroxide and barium nitrate in 2:1 ratio. So take 5 ml of urine, then add 5 ml of Baryta mixture and filter, and take the filtrate. Here we need not to discard the filtrate, we have to take the filtrate. In this filtrate, add 2 ml of concentrated hydrochloric acid. Boil the content for 2 minutes in a beaker and cool at room temperature. What will happen? White turbidity will appear in beaker. So what happens? The ethyl sulfates present in sample are dissociated on boiling with concentrated HCl. So what happens? This HCl causes degradation of ethyl sulfates present in sample, and by degrading it, inorganic sulfates are released. These inorganic sulfates react with barium present in baryta mixture and give white precipitate of barium sulfate. So these are the procedures for estimation of, for qualitative estimation of inorganic and organic constituents of urine.